Hello everybody, welcome back to a brand new episode of F1 23 Driver Career Mode. You see the breaking news, Haas Alfa Romeo announced a formal partnership going into Season 2, the 2024 season of this F1 23 Driver Career Mode. Exciting times ahead. That does leave up in the air what's going to happen with Sauber. Well, there is a plan that's going to be announced either in the next episode or the episode after, but before the end of the season. But you already get a look at the livery. I will have the mod linked down below in the description. A beautiful mod. Currently doesn't have any fire suits or anything, but the car looks great and just a great job by the mod creator. As you can see, is landing here in the United States for the US GP here in Austin, Texas. It was no better place for the Haas team to announce it than, well, their home Grand Prix here in Texas. They waited for this weekend. Come into this weekend fresh off of a very impressive performance in both the sprint race and the Grand Prix in Qatar. Now we're in Austin at COTA, and personally this is not a circuit I've ever enjoyed, and here we are in free practice one in the pouring rain, getting some practice on the track. Now there is a sprint race here again in COTA, just like we had in Qatar, but it's all going to be in the dry here today. Now, Max Verstappen getting closer and closer to wrapping up the World Drivers' Championship. He's been absolutely dominating as of late here, especially basically leading into the summer break and exiting the summer break. He got on a bit of a hot streak after what was a bit of a rough start to the season for the Dutchman. We end up free practice 1 P9, P11 for my teammate of Yuki Tsunoda. We jump straight through into Friday qualifying, ready to get rolling here. Now, as I tried to kind of go through qualifying and the sprint relatively quickly to still make this a pretty decent 20 to 25 minute length video. It looks like we're about 24 minutes, maybe close to 25, as we're going to get ready to roll here in qualifying. Like I said, not a huge fan of COTA, no matter what. Even, you know, from my NASCAR roots, I'm just not a fan of this track. When NASCAR races here, it's fun to watch in real life, but racing, it's not fun. My first lap, I ended P15, while my teammate of Tsunoda was in 9th, so that forced me into a second lap late here in the session now, just ahead of Lance Stroll, fellow Canadian, of course, and of course we're also trying to take his ride for next season. Still nothing confirmed. Now, Stroll has been stepping it up a little bit lately, some consistent points finishes. I say consistent, it's like 2 in a row, which is like the best he's done all season long, but we come through to find about 7 tenths of a second, 8 tenths of a second improvement, about 8.5. We cross the stripe, we actually go P9 here at the end of Q1, so we make it into Q2. Pretty happy about that. Our teammate of Tsunoda right there with us, P10, so a really good showing for our team as both the Haas cars are out, Williams out, and Zhou Guanyu for Alfa Romeo out. Of course, fresh off the news, the Alfa is departing from Sauber and going to Haas next season, so I'm hoping that we have an F1 team name changer mod going into Season 2, but we'll have to wait and see what happens with that. But here's my lap in Q2. It was a bit of a sloppy one, missing the apex at the end of both long straightaways, turn 1, and then of course turn 10, so not a very good lap, to be quite honest. Through the penultimate corner, I was kind of accepting, yeah, we're not making it into Q3. My teammate of Tsunoda could not improve his lap time. He only goes P12, so he will not advance. We don't go any better than anybody. We end up P15, so we're going to be starting 15th here on the grid from Circuit of the Americas, behind Piastri, Bottas, Tsunoda, and Stroll, all out in Q2 as we are going to get ready to roll. Let's go check out the grid as we get ready for the sprint race.
Off the back of a fantastic qualifying session, it's time to see how our starting grid looks for today's sprint. George Russell will begin today's event in pole position, with Charles Leclerc alongside. Considering the rest of the grid, we have Hamilton, Verstappen, Perez, Sainz, Fernando Alonso, Gasly, Ocon, Norris, Stroll, Tsunoda, Bottas, Oscar Piastri, Golden Boy, Hulkenberg, Magnussen, Albon, Joe, and Logan Sargent. Which of these drivers will get pole position today? We'll soon find out.
Great race in Qatar for you, Gary. Are the expectations high today in COTA?
No, I mean, I'm keeping it kind of realistic. I feel like it's going to be an interesting day to say the least, but we'll see what happens. Ready to roll then here for the sprint. Late afternoon start here. We're going to be on the mediums, so hard's an option, but we're going to do mediums. It does have a rain slot towards the end of the Grand Prix, so that is something to keep in mind here, but I doubt we'll see it, to be honest, as we're ready to roll.
The formation lap gets underway ahead of today's sprint. It's going to be interesting to see who gets pole position. almost ready to start the sprint as the cars take their positions on the grid, with the drivers and teams making their final preparations.
All right, boys, now we're kind of on that American swing. We'll be back here in a couple weeks with Vegas, I think, if I'm not mistaken.
That is correct. We'll have to throw down in Vegas, mate.
I am not ready to hear all of the gambling kind of jokes when F1 heads to Las Vegas later this year, which is a really late race, by the way. It's here in Canada. It's, I think, at like 1 a.m. my time, and we're in North America. Are you kidding me? Come on, man. It is what it is. Nonetheless, we're ready to roll here for another sprint race. I think we have one more this season coming up at Brazil, if I'm not mistaken, as we're ready to roll for 10 laps of racing here. P15 on the grid. 5 red lights. It's going to be lights out. We're underway here from Circuit of the Americas. A terrible start for my team at Sonoda. Stroll as well, Piastri included in the McLaren. We get a great launch up into 12th, of course. Keep in mind, only the top 8 get points in the sprint. Nearly into the back there of Esteban Ocon, side by side up front. It's George Russell going at it right there with Charles Leclerc, but Russell gets the position, as you can see, Verstappen and Hamilton side by side just behind them. Through the S as they go, Hamilton hangs on. Perez settles in right now behind Max Verstappen. The rest of the field all getting sorted out pretty quick. Now, there was one little key thing to mention for my specific car for the sprint race, and I can confirm for the Grand Prix as well. My ICE was quite worn, like 60 or so percent worn coming into the sprint, kind of in that area. I forgot to switch it before qualifying, and then I was basically saying, okay, let's run it for the sprint, get the best finish we can, and then we'll swap it out for the race and just take the grid penalty. Well, I forgot to switch it out for the Grand Prix as well. So we're going to be dealing with a worn ICE all episode long, which is going to reduce the straight line power of the car just a little bit, but it shouldn't be too bad. Yellow flag ahead here, lap 2. It's Fernando Alonso. That's the second sprint race in a row that he's had smoke pouring out of the back of that Aston Martin. This time I can't go for a slipstream off of blowing up Alonso, but it's going to be day over there for him, and he'll be starting at the back again here 2 episodes in a row as I was making a lunge up the inside of Esteban Ocon in the Alpine. So we move up to P10 as the battles were happening and kind of starting to kick off here. This is Max Verstappen, lap 4, down into turn 1, side by side with Hamilton, who's desperate to keep that 3rd position, but Verstappen just able to out-traction Hamilton on the exit of turn 1, down the elevation through the S as they continue side by side like lap 1. This time Verstappen comes out on top as I was continuing to put on some pressure now on the back of Valtteri Bottas, who's having a good race so far, by the way, here in this sprint. A nice top 10. Him and myself, we got pretty similar cars right now that just aren't great, but we're both having good efforts here in Texas. But we get through, move up at a P9, trying to get up towards that 8th position, already coming up on the halfway point of the sprint, and now Valtteri has gone round, and his good sprint comes to an end, and that might bring out a safety car. Yes, it will. Safety car deployed here in the lap 5 count of 10. So yeah, we're gonna relax for a minute, but we would get ready to roll once again. So we're now in striking distance to maybe get a point or 2 or more. I would also get, as we were going back green, information from Mark that Perez now has a mechanical issue. He's not out of the race, but he's got an issue, so he's going to be slow in the Red Bull. So that's probably a guaranteed position right there. We're likely going to get a point out of this sprint, which is not expected with the pace we had in qualifying. We got a really good start. Staying in the DRS is very beneficial here in Coda with the long straightaways nearly into the back of the Alpine of Gasly. He gets a rough exit there out of the left-hander. That's going to make him very vulnerable and wide open for the taking for myself here on this AlphaTauri. We're going to go to the left side. His former car, of course, overtaking him now down into the braking zone. You can see Perez dropping back. Carlos Sainz goes through into 5th. Lando Norris there in the McLaren having a good day as well, now putting some pressure on the back of Perez, and I'm hoping to follow Norris through, but now Norris makes a mistake right there on the exit of the final turn, and now here we go for an overtaking opportunity on the British driver down the straightaway. We're going to head up the very large elevation here up the hill. What is the actual count? It's almost like 100 feet or something. Maybe it's 50. I can't remember. I'm probably way off. I'm not even going to try saying what it is, but nonetheless, we get past Norris through turn 1, set our sights on Perez, and suddenly this has turned into a sprint of my dreams, going for P6 on Perez into the corner. Of course, I was hoping that we would somehow be able to get a ride at Red Bull going into Season 2, but it's just not going to happen. Perez has been too good, and Verstappen obviously is going to win the championship here. Now is the last lap, and somehow we have run down Lewis Hamilton, but too desperate for the position. We've run wide, and I give up the position to Lewis there. I didn't want to keep it in that manner of just running completely off the track, so I just kind of laid back now. But look at this, a slip out of the left-hander, and now Hamilton's vulnerable again. We look up the right side. What has happened to the long-run pace of my car? It's just really picked up here late in this sprint here, side by side with a 7-time world champion through the penultimate corner. The sprint winner is his teammate of George Russell. Contact there. I'm going to lunge one up the inside, do a little switchback on Hamilton, run him a little bit wide right there. Not the way I wanted to race him, but we're going to come through and get P5 in the sprint in COTA. Absolutely incredible. Honestly, never expected that. It's efforts like that puts you on the radar of big teams going into Season 2 and beyond, Season 3 as well, further down the line. Driver of the day. Aston Martin, Lawrence Stroll had to have enjoyed that quite thoroughly, especially when I was able to outpace their car of Lance Stroll, which is a car that's way quicker than my AlphaTauri. Of course, we still need to back that up with having a good run in the actual Grand Prix. We'll take a very brief look at the standings. Verstappen, 73-point advantage over Perez after his mechanical issue, and he's the only one that's mathematically still in it, but not for long, as we get ready to go racing on Sunday.
Well, you don't need me to remind you that Formula One is now so beloved in the United States that we race here 3 times a year. But let's give respect to COTA, or the Circuit of the Americas, to give it its full name. This place laid the foundations for this moment and still remains the host of the US Grand Prix. We're racing today then in Travis County, Texas, where 20 corners and speeds of up to 200 miles per hour await us on this magnificent racetrack. It's 60% full throttle with plenty of good opportunities to pass, especially through the 2 DRS zones into Turn 1 and the long back straight into Turn 12. What a race we have in store today. Before we begin, let's take a quick look at the grid lineup for today's race. World champion Max Verstappen starts from pole position, and the smooth operator Carlos Sainz completes the front row. Looking down the rest of the grid, we have Golden Boy, Hamilton, Norris, Gasly, Perez, Ocon, Stroll, Russell, Magnussen, Leclerc, Hulkenberg, Oscar Piastri, Tsunoda, Albon, Sargent, Joe, Bottas, and Fernando Alonso rounds off the grid. And now it's time to head down to the track. It's just about time to go to the track for the beginning of the race, but before we do, Natalie Pinkham, what types of strategy do you think we can expect going into today's race?
Clearly every car can't be as competitive as the next. Some are going to have a clear advantage over the opposition. So it's those teams that can think outside the box in terms of strategy that will come out on top today. I hope they do.
Well, yeah, so you can see because of the fact that I forgot to change my ICE, like I mentioned earlier, we are going to be starting in P3 after some grid penalties, as we're going to be on an interesting strategy. Everybody's on softs, but myself and Lewis Hamilton on mediums to hards. This is going to be an interesting one. Let's get ready to roll for the formation lap.
Here we go then, the formation lap gets underway and the excitement here is building as we near ever closer to the start of the race. Which team will come out on top? Who's got their strategies right for today's race? But we'll soon find out. As the cars come back towards the grid to line up for the start of the race, each driver will be wanting to get the best start they possibly can, and they'll be hoping to finish today's race on the podium, failing that, within the points.
All right, so for the Grand Prix, unfortunately, I'm not going to have any radio from Mark, nor will I have drive through the grid with the AI voices because I couldn't get it working for whatever reason. I don't know what was going on, but I can confirm post video editing, it is fixed, so it will be back next episode. There's no worries there. I know you guys seem to enjoy it very, very much, and I hope we can keep doing that without issue for as long as possible here now as we are ready to roll then for the Grand Prix here in Circuit of the Americas. Look at that hill there. What a steep steep climb when you get it from a view like that. But it's going to be Verstappen, Sainz, the front row, myself, P3, my best start in Formula 1 history in our rookie season. It's lights out. We're underway here in the United States, in Austin, Texas, side by side, wheel to wheel with the Ferrari of Sainz, looking for his second career win here today, but Hamilton's caught him off guard up the inside. Only myself and Hamilton on the mediums here today. How will these mediums on this start make a difference, you know, going into the second run of the race when we switch to the hards? I mean, this starting tire is going to be such a crucial, you know, point of interest here when it comes to looking at what could have been later in the Grand Prix for not only myself, but like I said, Hamilton as well, already abusing track limits, getting a warning, but I was struggling immediately on pace. I don't know if it was because of my worn ICE that I forgot to change, or if it was the medium tire. Hamilton was struggling to keep pace with the cars in front of him, so I was kind of thinking it was more of the medium tire, but here comes Perez with an engine that's working, this time unlike the sprint, and he hauls the mail, so I'm already down to P6 at the end of lap 1. We've lost 3 positions. At the end of the day, we gotta remember, we're in an AlphaTauri. It's gonna be very hard to hold position no matter how good my tires are, how good anything is right now, because this car is just slow. I'm going very defensive, however, on Lance Stroll, because, well, like I've said numerous times, I want to keep or get his ride, so I wasn't going to make it very easy on Lance. He fights again to my right-hand side as we head towards the DRS straight. We hold him off, but a lap later, lap 3, when the DRS was activated, I really didn't have any much more of a defense mechanism to my advantage. Stroll goes through into P6. He's looking for 3 consecutive points finishes, which is starting to scare me, but you can see Russell goes through with the DRS. It's just, I couldn't defend these cars. It's just not realistic to try and defend them. What was more realistic is you see a bit of a slide out of the final turn. That's going to open the door for Esteban Ocon to outgrip me and outpace me into turn 1. That's another position we're going to lose. However, I was looking for an opportunity kind of like this. That Alpine isn't a terrible amount faster than the AlphaTauri, so that gives me an opportunity to stay behind Ocon within the DRS and just follow him for the next bunch of laps and not have to worry about getting passed. So I'm not going to fight Ocon. I'm just going to ride behind him, and I did that all the way to lap 9, because by doing this, well, I lose less time, because if I fight him, we're just going to waste time, and he's going to pass me back anyways. So I decided to stay put behind him, and we were kind of in ride mode to get through to that first set of pit stops there. As you saw briefly, the top 3, Verstappen, as well as Sainz and Hamilton, who seems to be closing back in. Perez as well in 4th place now, and Verstappen, lap 12, going to be the first of anybody to come in from softs to hards. That's going to be an interesting one, because the majority of the field's looking at softs to mediums. Now look at this. Verstappen, after he came out of the pits, already blew right by me. I was only ahead of him for half a lap after this happened. But when I saw he was on hards, I knew we were going on hards, so I decided to pit a couple laps early, because I was like, well, if he can go to the end on hards, I can certainly go to the end from hards at this point as well. So we're going to come in very, very early compared to our pit window and put on a fresh set of hard tires as we will get ready to go back onto the circuit here. Leclerc was able to undercut me, and Ocon was able to get quite a ways ahead. Of course, they pitted earlier than me, being on those soft tires. He had quite a few drivers on hards, but the drivers on the hards were kind of struggling. The drivers on the mediums were really excelling, and here's proof. Look at this. Nico Hulkenberg ran me down all lap long and made the move up the inside and made the pass. So Logan Sargent now into the pits will pass him. We would cycle out into P11, but I was still struggling. Here's Pierre Gasly on this set of softs. Now flying up my right side, I didn't have much for him. I defend pretty well, and then it would get spicy. Fernando Alonso joins the mix, and here he is side by side with Gasly. Look at the speed in that AlphaTauri. I dream of having that next season, but then Gasly's going to follow right through as we head down into the turn 10 braking zone. I'm not going to make it easy on Pierre, because I know that's an Alpine that we can beat, so I'd rather just not pass him back. So now the goal was to hold on to Fernando's DRS like we did with Esteban Ocon, and I would be able to do that for the most part here. You can see lap 17 already in this Grand Prix. We're holding on to that slipstream and that DRS just barely from the Spaniard of Alonso now, as I'm hoping to be teammates with him next season. Here's Sainz. Actually, now lap 18 on the mediums compared to Verstappen's hards, and there you see the difference now. Verstappen's going to hang on, but how long will he hang on for? The answer, not long. DRS straight away here down towards turn 10. Sainz to the lead, looking for that second win of his Formula 1 career. It's late in season 2, or season 1, 2023, sorry, and here here he is now in position to get that victory now. Of course, his first win coming in the British Grand Prix in 2022 as we go through the grid. But you're with me, as I mentioned earlier, why? Lando Norris there, P6, Stroll 7th place through Leclerc, Esteban Ocon, Hulkenberg in the points currently. Haas, of course, fresh off that news with the partnership with Alfa Romeo, having a decent run with Hulkenberg. Magnussen a little bit further down there in 14th place through Albon. Piastri not having a great day, and neither is my teammate Yuki Tsunoda, who currently finds himself in P18, but I think he's sizing up a potential move right here on Valtteri Bottas. He opens that rear wing, and yeah, Valtteri Bottas is going to basically be defenseless right here as they head up the hill, and that's going to be an easy pass there for Tsunoda, who moves up into 17th. Now, things were starting to swing back in the advantage of the hard tires. Gasly was starting to fade a little bit from putting pressure on me. Hulkenberg was starting to fade back towards Alonso and myself. Yellow flags. And what do we got here? We've got a pile up. It's a spin from, it looks like, Lando Norris. The safety car immediately is going to come out. The car is ghost, which saves us there. Even with ghosting up, they ghost. I still don't understand that, but the safety car comes out because that Lando goes around, and he would end up stopping, obviously, and then you saw what happened. We came up, and there was a pileup. It kind of happened out of nowhere. So now we have a safety car late in the day with Sainz, Hamilton, who had gotten past Max Verstappen. So Verstappen in third, Perez in fourth, as we're getting ready to go once again. Coming up on 3 laps to go here in Circuit of the Americas. It's been a good race for us. It's been a good race in general. Watching the strategy and the battles for the lead between Sainz, Verstappen. But here we are back underway now. Not a great launch for myself. Fortunately, not a good launch for Gasly either. So I'm not under pressure down into turn 1. And Sainz gets through. And look at the track map. Sainz already driving away. Yellow flag behind us. It's actually the Williams of Alex Albon, who's pulling off circuit with a mechanical failure. So it's going to be day over for Alex Albon, unfortunately, there in that Williams car. As we continue on, Alonso, grip loss here. Now that's going to open the door for me to get aggressive here. Bodacious move up the inside. And here we go for that 9th position, wheel to wheel. Not for long. We out-traction Alonso in the Aston Martin. Similar to the sprint race, we found that extra bit of grip towards the end of the race. We start the final lap here, and Sainz was long gone. I don't know how he did it, but he drove away. He's on the mediums compared to Verstappen, Hamilton, who are all on hards. Verstappen got through into second past Hamilton, but those mediums just allowed Sainz to drive away. Verstappen drove away from Hamilton, who I think maybe had some wing damage at this point, but it's now Sainz coming through the final turn in COTA. Career win number 2 for the Spaniard, as Verstappen's going to come home second and still increase his championship lead over his teammate of Sergio Perez, who comes home behind Lewis Hamilton there in the Mercedes. We cross the stripe for a very, very solid, respectable weekend. P9 here in COTA. We will absolutely take that as driver of the day, Fernando Alonso, who came from the back of the grid. Let's head to the podium.
A truly magnificent drive and a great performance from the entire team, securing victory here in Austin. So Natalie, what do you think helped them deliver this result?
I really feel the track layout combined with the track temperatures we saw today suited their car. These cars come alive when the tyres are just at the right temperature, and the driver did a great job managing that as well. They just look so comfortable out there. It's like anything, it always looks so easy when it all just clicks.
All right, well, there you have the podium celebration coming up here now with Carlos Sainz on the top step. Carlos is one of my favorite drivers in Formula One, basically second favorite behind Zhou. So awesome to see Carlos on the top step of the podium. If it's not in real life, in the video game here, we take it as well. But you got Max Verstappen, of course, Hamilton joining him up there, and a happy Ferrari team who, has been the second best team this season, but obviously it really hasn't meant much in terms of the championship fight. Mercedes is actually closing the gap to them in the constructors, but now both Ferrari drivers have won this season, and all drivers on the top 3 teams have won this season now, with, of course, Red Bull with Perez, Verstappen. Mercedes got the Hamilton win in Miami, Russell with the win in, Monaco and somewhere else, and, of course, Leclerc and Sainz with wins now. 79 points. The gap has increased between Verstappen and Perez, as Verstappen looks to lock up this championship in the coming episodes here, well before the season comes to a conclusion now. We are at 30 points. We close in on Stroll, 10 points behind him. It's going to get interesting in the fight with him as well. We are 6 points ahead of Haas. Hopefully Tsunoda can help us a little bit more in the coming episodes. That's going to wrap it up for me. I'll see you guys in the next one. Have a great day, everybody.